Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the social cost of carbon and its policy implications on our energy and environment. First off, what is the social cost of carbon? The social cost of carbon is the estimated future economic loss caused by releasing 1 metric ton of CO2 into the atmosphere. This SSC, or social cost of carbon, is a way to quantify the cost of carbon emissions released into the atmosphere and also the effect that it has on our environment and economy. So, why is this important, you ask? By looking at climate change from an economical standpoint, we can start to determine how effects and solutions to climate change will impact our society, environment, and economy. We can also put a dollar figure on carbon emissions and how it impacts said fields. The social cost of carbon is used by policymakers and individuals involved in environmental policy to make realistic decisions based on the value given for the social cost of carbon. Essentially, the social cost of carbon is a cost-benefit analysis for carbon. So how do we calculate this SSC? To calculate the SSC, it's actually quite complicated. It uses integrated assessment models known as IAMs. IAMs are defined as approaches that integrate knowledge from two or more domains into a single framework. So essentially, an IAM takes different data points and statistics and inputs it into a model. For example, the input would be carbon abatement and emissions reduced, and then the output would be the cost. The main IAMs used for determining the social cost of carbon are the DICE, PAGE, and FUND. For this example, we're going to focus on the DICE. The DICE model requires a wide range of economic and social values to be used as inputs. The model starts with estimating a baseline change for emissions, GDP, population, per capita consumption, and temperature. Then, we add additional carbon emissions into the model to see how the trend for temperature and per capita consumption changes. One of the main things involved with determining the social cost of carbon is the present and future value money, also known as discounting. Discounting and determining an accurate value for the discount rate is one of the most critical aspects of determining the social cost of carbon. One of the big issues is uncertainty. No one knows what things will be like and how they will be valued in the future. If we set a discount rate that is too high or too low, the consequences of climate change may be under or overvalued in the future. When we look at issues with the social cost of carbon, there's quite a few. The social cost of carbon can be manipulated quite easily by using a lower or higher discount rate. This is largely dependent on where the party tasked to find the social cost of carbon values the environment. For example, the Obama administration estimated that the social cost of carbon was around $45 per ton of CO2, while the Trump administration is predicting it between $1 and $6. We can see a big issue here because a higher social cost of carbon is going to put more emphasis on reduction, while lower is going to push us back into using things like coal. Chosen discounts rate is one of the cause of discrepancies between the two figures. The Obama-era EPA chose to use a discount rate of 2.5%, 3%, and 5%, while the Trump EPA used 3% and 7%. The Trump administration has changed their definition on what it considers to be the cost of 1 ton of CO2 and who it impacts. This is also another issue. The Obama's EPA considered the cost of CO2 emissions on a global scale, while Trump's EPA only counts damages within the U.S. from climate change. This makes the damages smaller under Trump's EPA finding and makes it harder to justify spending on climate change abatement. This is a big issue. More issues are that by putting a relatively low value on the social cost of carbon, industries that use coal and fossil fuels are going to be considered okay for the time being. This also lets people move backwards and have less reason to switch to carbon neutral solutions. This is especially true if the social cost of carbon is a low dollar amount. A A low social cost of carbon figure allows companies to easily pay to pollute if the social cost of carbon is a low value. If we pay less now, we will pay even more in the future. If the social cost of carbon is a low value now, but was miscalculated due to a number of issues, we're going to have a lot of problems. A high or low social cost of carbon also has large policy implications. Because policymakers use the social cost of carbon to base economic and social policies, having a distorted figure is going to distort the policies. So how do we fix these issues in the social cost of carbon? Well, a proposed better approach to determining the social cost of carbon has been presented by economist Robert Pindyck. Pindyck suggests that a group of experts on climate change and economists could be contracted by the government to work to generate a figure for the social cost of carbon. Then, every 5 years, update that value with the current trends of our economy, society, and climate. Another approach is to have a separate government entity unrelated to current political opinion do the modeling for the social cost of carbon. This is similar to what Pindyck is suggesting. Another way to deal with this is to come up with a realistic, reasonable, and widely agreed upon discount rate. This would accurately measure how much we value the future, and if everyone can get on the same page when it comes to having the correct discount rate, the figure would be much more realistic. Regardless of the social cost of carbon, another way to fix this is just to increase funding for carbon abatement, regardless of the estimated social cost of carbon. We know what carbon is going to do to our environment, and if there's more, it's just going to cause more problems. So investing now is much better than dealing with it in the future. Thank you for listening.